Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Peter Danukas, and I'm the chair of the board of the Northumberland Central Chamber of Commerce. We are a voluntary, not-for-profit membership organization representing the interests of business in Hamilton Township, as well as all McAlderman and the town of Cobourg. The Chamber of Commerce organizes and hosts all candidates' events for federal, provincial, and municipal elections, and opens them to the public free of charge. We are very pleased to partner with the NFA for tonight's event. This is the third of 4 events in 3 municipalities the Chamber has organized at a cost of nearly $2,000 to our organization. That's in addition to the ones held earlier this year for the provincial election, and we're now budgeting for a federal all-candidates meeting just in case. If you've ever wondered what the Chamber of Commerce does, that's just one example of how we support our business community. And now, with an overview of the format for tonight's event, is our moderator for this evening, Chris Pelche from Northumberland View.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chris Pelche, and I am the owner of NorthumberlandView.ca. And the format for this evening is very simple. Each candidate, including trustees, will have 2 minutes to provide an overview of their campaign platform, after which they will be invited to respond to written questions collected from the floor, and that includes trustees as well. Candidates will have 1 minute to respond to each question, unless a yes or no question is specified. There are 3 participating candidates for English School Board Trustee, and we have allocated up to 30 minutes for presentations and questions and answers. There are 5 candidates for council, and we have allocated 60 minutes. There are 4 candidates for mayor and deputy mayor, and we have allocated 60 minutes. Timing will be strictly enforced. A yellow sign, there we go, will be raised to signify 15 seconds remaining, and an orange stop sign will be raised to signify that time is up, and the microphone will be turned off. See? It does happen. Written questions will be collected from the floor throughout the evening. If you have a question prepared, just raise your hand and one of our volunteers will be around to collect it. Questions can be directed to all candidates on stage or to individual candidates. The question will be delivered to the table at the front, over here, where they will be sorted by topic. Questions may be rewritten for clarity or multiple questions combined for efficiency. Due to time restrictions, we cannot guarantee that all questions collected from the floor will be put forward, but the sorters will make every effort to ensure that the most frequent questions asked get top priority. Profanity, outbursts, or displays of disrespect will not be tolerated. So these are the rules. If you don't agree with this format, if you don't like this format, I'm going to give you a couple moments to stand up and leave. There we go. So on-stage placement and order of presentations were determined by random draws held earlier this evening. So now we are going to begin with the candidates for student council. For public school board trustees. And they are Gordon Gilchrist, Mike Phillip, and Jane Klassen-Janinga. And they will be making their ways to the stage right now. And we will begin with Gordon Gilchrist.
Good evening. Many folk wonder what trustees do. Trustees govern all the activities of a school board. My colleagues and I oversee and introduce many things for the benefit of your kids, our students. In my 2 minutes, let me talk about some of the many achievements of the Kawartha Pine Ridge School Board. As a well-experienced trustee, I've been able to influence quite a few innovations. One of them is the installation of interactive electronic smartboards into our classrooms. They bring vast amounts of pictorial and verbal information as teaching aids and instruction for our students. KPR is the first board in Canada to adopt the Discovery Textbook program, containing many subjects of TV's Discovery Channel, complete with discussion, questions, and answers. Another item is the forcing of much greater emphasis on the teaching of science and technology because of their vital importance to today's students. We've asked teachers to recognize the numerous opportunities offered by the sciences in today's world, in electronics, nanotechnology, clean energy, robotics, biotechnologies, environmental science, and many more. My 14 years have overseen Coburg East's adoption of culinary arts, horticulture, construction programs, French immersion, and the Super International Baccalaureate. Our new Coburg Collegiate will have 7 modern science classrooms, a Mac computer lab, a fine library, an arts center, plus music and dance classrooms. We'll have combined 2 of the board's top academic schools and will give students great curriculum selection such that they'll receive 400 career choices next year compared to 211 last year. Our elementary school kids will have far greater career choices for advanced learning. That's what trustees do. They raise the bar and give guidance to excellent administrators and teachers who carry out the activities of teaching and learning. I want to keep raising the bar for you and your most precious possessions, your children. I thank you for having given me your trust for the past 14 years and respectfully ask for your continuing support.
Thank you, Mr. Gilchrist. And now we'll hear from Mike Phillip.
I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to run for Public School Board Trustee in our community. Public education is the foundation for our kids, and if elected, my mandate is to ensure that the next generation is prepared for our diverse and ever-changing world. I look forward to putting kids first. I've worked with kids and their families as an educator, a coach, and a mentor for over 35 years. I am now retired and have a young son in grade 5 at Grafton Public School, and I continue to be involved as a hockey dad and a volunteer at the school on a regular basis, as well as being involved in various community organizations. I have the skill set to be a strong link between our community and the school board. I would like to share a few of my priorities. I am a strong advocate for mental health education and awareness in our schools and community. As your trustee, I will foster partnerships with community organizations. A strong voice is necessary to develop student programs and training for all teachers and support staff. Much of my life has been spent working with kids as a coach, and I continue to publicly support extracurricular programs in our schools, as they can reach all students and are often a great equalizer. Teachers and community volunteers are essential for making activities happen within our schools, and we need to see this continue to grow. I need to work with the school board with regards to budget and fiscal responsibilities. We need to ensure that our tax dollars are being spent on education with the best interests of our kids and their families at heart. This can be a difficult conversation considering today's economy. I will advocate for you at the board table and help to ensure accountability and transparency. We also need to ensure that our schools and school boards continue to provide our students with access to technology. Our kids are 21st century learners and live in a digital world. Our schools and teachers need the technology and training to provide a 21st century education. I possess the skills necessary to collaborate with all stakeholders. I am open to new ideas and have the ability to be the voice of our community. I am experienced in the education system, and I too am a parent with a child in our local school board and want the best education for our children.
Thank you, Mr. Phillip. 2 minutes goes by fast. And just to let you know that we only have 1 question so far for the trustees, so if you do have a question for the trustees, write it down, put your hand up, and one of our volunteers will come and get it. And now let's hear from Jane Klassen-Janinga.
Good evening. Education needs to be the bridge that brings schools and community together, children and adults alike, where one can learn from the other and develop new programs and skills that can benefit both parties. I have often said it takes a community to educate a child, and the Township of Hamilton has embraced that. I'd like to thank Mayor Lufshin and the Council for their dedication to education in Hamilton Township. I've always had a passion for education, and for the past 4 years, I've had the best of both worlds. As a music teacher for the past 30 plus years, I've had the opportunity to work with students at various ages and ability levels. As a trustee, I've been able to serve the greater public, having developed positive relationships among many of the school's students and staff within our jurisdiction. This has fueled my passion for education and for advocating for the best that we as a publicly funded school board can offer to the students within our care. I've been privileged to serve on the program committee my entire term. As part of this committee, I was able to introduce the idea of a partnership between our board and the Discovery Education Canada network. Today, this partnership is in its 3rd year, and with the science through the Discovery Textbook program, as Trustee Gilchrist has alluded to, and we are the distinction of being the first board in Canada to do so. Serving on the Special Education Advisory Committee has been extremely rewarding. In 4 short years, what was once months of waiting for assistive technology has been reduced to an average of less than 6 weeks. So why do I want to continue as a trustee? I believe in the leadership direction of this board. Our current strategic plan is focused on ensuring that student needs are being addressed across a broad spectrum of issues, from nutrition to mental health to numeracy and literacy. KPR is a leader nationally in the area of mental health and mentally healthy schools, with members of our senior administration and our chief psychologist being invited to speak about our programs in other provincial jurisdictions. Moving forward, improve student transportation. One size fits all no longer fits into our board structure. We need a curriculum that will tie the importance of financial literacy with numeracy and our math skills, and keeping small schools vital and alive within the communities they serve. Your continued support going forward would be appreciated.
Thank you, Ms. Glass-Janinga. Like I said, 2 minutes goes by fast. Now, we do have a couple of questions for the trustees. As a school system trustee, will you monitor thoroughly the costing of repairs and additions where schools are proposed to be closed or relocated? Okay. Well, this is for all 3 trustees, and we will start with Mr. Gilchrist.
I guess everybody read the paper today. If everybody down in Queen's Park pays more attention to the Toronto School Board than it does to all the other responsible boards in the province, that's what you get. We have closed a number of schools, and we have sold schools when we close them. We don't like closing schools. We certainly don't like putting kids on the bus for an extended length of time, and we do our best to avoid that. But when it comes to denying the curriculum that you can only provide with a certain number of teachers and a certain number of pupils, then you have to seriously consider closing schools. We have closed about half a dozen in the 14 years I've been a trustee, and we've sold half of them and are selling the rest. That's the way the thing has to go, and we regret it, but it gives the kids a much better curriculum to work with.
Mr. Phillip, 1 minute.
Okay, well, you know, we all know that funding from the province is on a per pupil basis, and so that really affects the outcome of keeping small schools open. We have to be fiscally responsible, that's for sure, but you know, the flip side of that is that kids shouldn't have to ride the school bus for an hour. So, you know, we have to look at both sides and offer you know, some kind of a mediated and very consultative response. We need to do a gap analysis so that we can see where it is we are, where it is we want to be, and how we're going to get there. It always comes down to a case-by-case analysis, and that's what we would have to do in every situation. I love small schools. I taught in small schools most of my life. I certainly understand the importance of a small school and a small community. Thank you.
And Ms. Clausen-Janinga.
I believe that small schools and the ability to maintain them is extremely important, if at all possible. In recent years, we've had the ability to upgrade a lot of our small schools, thanks in part to the government's rollout of full-day kindergarten. Now, regardless of how you feel about full-day kindergarten, it did give our schools a big pick-me-up in a lot of areas as far as upgrades is concerned, and that has been great for a lot of our schools. But we do have small schools that don't function well and don't have enough students to really maintain them the way that they should be maintained. And when it gets to be a piecemeal deal, then it's time to look at whether those options are viable anymore or not. But small schools, especially those that are main schools and the main community hub of a particular village or town, I think we need to take a look at different ways to address those.
And thank you very much. The next question. Bullying has become a problem in many schools right across the country. What would you do to improve this situation and perhaps finally have it eradicated from our schools? And we will begin with Mr. Phillip.
Eradication, boy, I'd love to see that as a retired principal. You know, the big piece there is what do you have in your school that can help you on a day-to-day basis with a bullying situation. Principals are certainly a mainstay in that you set the bar for your student population. You walk the walk and you need to lead by example. So that's something that a principal can do. What we need is we need the resources in those schools to help support those kids who tend to be, quote unquote, the bully in the yard. Well, how do you do that? You do that by making sure that every school has supports like CYWs, retention counselors, those kinds of things that will help and have the time to sit down with that child. Because quite often it's the bully who's crying out for help. And we have to make sure that if we help the bully, then the bully will actually disappear in the school. And that's how I always approached it. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Klassen-Janiga, please.
I agree that we don't have enough EAs and CYWs in our schools. It doesn't take very much to see that at all. In addition to that, I think that we need to have those conversations with all of the students that are in our schools, and not necessarily in a big domain as in a grand whole school assembly. Sometimes the best things that you can do is sit the kids in a circle in your room and have that discussion and have that sharing time about what is bullying, what is respect, what is integrity in proper age appropriate language, and that needs to be drilled into the kids on a regular basis. And we lead by example. School leadership teams, teacher leadership teams in elementary schools, particularly in 7 and 8, we have a lot of leadership. We need to take those leadership students and we need to give them to work with our smaller students so that they understand how to be good leaders too.
Thank you. Mr. Gilchrist.
Well, I too would like to see the end of bullying, but I'm afraid that's not very realistic. We do have our various aids and remedies, as my colleagues have described. In my view, the making school more interesting and occupying the minds of kids is a very distinct course of action to take. We're doing that with this Discovery Tech book. We're giving kids the chance to work in class and to think about the deep things in life and respect other kids and their elders. It's terribly disappointing to sit on the expulsion committee and see the very worst of the worst, but it's encouraging to see much improvement taking place, although it doesn't seem to be registering with everyone, but there is improvement, and the teachers do a great job in trying to modify situations and bring the kids on through the various committees and group meetings. So that's all I can offer you as hope.
Thank you very much. Our next question. We are becoming more aware of the enormous mental health needs in school community. The reality is there are not sufficient resources in the community to help these students. How will you help bring services to this community? And we will begin with Ms. Klassen-Janiga.
Thank you. One of my favorite topics, and that is we need to be well-versed in mentally healthy schools. And what does that look like in the schools of the 21st century? It means recognizing behaviors, and also it means having the resources available to deal with those. We're getting there. We have two board-wide mental health nurses on staff now to help with our students who are struggling, and we have school administrators who are able to request that. We have mental health counselors that are specifically trained, and in the upcoming days we are going to be running a program for all of our principals and vice principals on the area of mental health. So it starts from the top down. We have to make sure that the teachers and the caregivers are aware of what's going on, and then we need to teach it to the students and be aware of what to look for.
Thank you very much. And for those standing up in the back, there are a few empty seats scattered about, so you can always move forward. And Mr. Gilchrist.
A very poignant question for me today. I have this very day struggled with a particularly difficult situation on mental health. I have a student who is just extremely difficult to control. The teachers do their best. It was working well in the elementary school, which was a smaller environment where the kids actually were helping. They were quite sympathetic to this particular child and actually were helping the teachers. But now that child is in high school, it's a much more open situation and very difficult to control. We have agencies like Kinark and Perry's Pals and others. We have brought our psychologists there. There will be a major meeting with teachers and principals, and they will resolve the problem this coming Thursday, I have no doubt. We do that on an individual basis, and we are very successful at that, I'm glad to say. But I hate to see the prevailing amount of these situations.
Thank you very much. Mr. Phillip.
Yes, also a problem very near and dear to my heart. I was surprised while I was doing my research that I discovered that 15 to 21% of our students have at least one mental health disorder. That really made me sit up and take notice. However, there is a movement afoot now, and the government has put together a ministry of children and youth services. And this Ministry of Children and Youth Services is an umbrella. And what it does is it tries to coordinate all of the services that sit underneath it. And our Board of Education would be one of those. So that in itself, I think, is a step forward. So it shows that the ministry have recognized that there is an issue there. What we really need to do is give teachers the tools to help identify those students. So in the long term, we can avoid, really extreme kinds of things. We can nip it in the bud, provide the counseling that's necessary. Hopefully, eliminate that problem as much as we can.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, one more question. The Discovery Partnership is a wonderful program, but expensive for individual schools. How would you propose to assist those that don't have the budget to participate? And we will begin with Mr. Gilchrist. 1 minute.
Well, we certainly will not be excluding any school. The budget is one thing, but we don't discriminate in schools. We have 8 test schools right now working on that program and making certain that it's Canadianized. We don't really want to know a lot about General Washington compared to General Brock. And so we're seeing that it's customized for Canada, but that's the only thing slowing it down just at the moment. All the schools will be participating. It's a wonderful program. It helps teachers prepare the next day's lesson in history or geography or even mathematics, and will provide the teacher with the appropriate questions, give time for discussion in class, and then come up with the answers to whatever questions are posed. And we will apply that universally throughout our schools.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Phillip.
Yes, I'm interested in this as well, but I'm more interested in looking at what the outcome will be. I'm very much interested in measuring a program. So again, I'm going to be looking at making sure that I'm fully aware of the data that comes out of that. I'm going to look at consulting with other people who are expertise in this area, and then move towards asking the right questions. Where are we? Where do we want to go? Why do we want to go there? How important is this compared to other things that we're offering, such as mental health awareness in our schools? Is this a priority for us? Is it a funded priority? If it isn't a funded priority, it's not a priority. So I'd want to have a hard look at this, make sure there's some real gain to be had, and then move forward from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Klassen-Janinga.
Thank you. So as I stated earlier in my opening remarks, we are in year 3, and now in year 3 there will be 5 additional schools being added into the pilot project for a total of 13. It is a school voluntary basis. The schools are being asked, and principals are being asked to submit their schools if they're interested in participating. Often school councils are paying for a particular license. And we will be looking at it as, from an operational standpoint, as to see whether or not this is something moving forward. The program, if you've seen the program live, one of the things it would do is it would give small schools in particular the opportunity to participate in a type of learning that they may not have the resources for in their own school. So it could be a help, but I think that in the long term, we need to have keep a good eye on it and see whether or not this is something that is going to show results.
Thank you very much. And that is it for questions for the candidates for school board trustee. I'd like to thank the candidates for coming. And I'd also like to thank you all for coming because, tonight is the first game of the NHL season. And you're here. Wow.
That's where I'm going.
Yeah, exactly. So we will take a brief intermission while we set up for the counselors. The candidates for school board trustee will be around if you have any further questions for them. Well, when I said brief intermission, it was going to be brief. So I would like to now call up the candidates for counselor. There are 5 counselors. 5 candidates for counselor, and they are Bill Kane, Mary Giuffre, Scott Jibb, Janine Huffman, and Pat McCord. And if you could please make your way to the stage. There's steps on this side. And again, the placement of the placement and order were determined by a random draw before the evening began. Okay. So the same rules apply. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to provide an overview of their campaign platform, after which they will be invited to respond to written questions, and answers will be 1 minute. So, we will now begin with Bill Kane.
Thank you. Nice to see some familiar faces. When this election is over, there will be at least 2 counselors without any political experience. If I'm one of them, I'll do everything I can to get up to speed as quickly as possible. Learn council protocols, talk to our staff, familiarize myself with the budget, whatever it takes so I can become a contributing member of council. I've not aligned myself with any other candidates, and if elected, I'll be an independent thinker. I'm fiscally responsible in my personal life and as a small business owner, and I would take the same approach as a counselor. That's all I can promise. I do have 2 other goals. The first is to be part of a cohesive council with the best interest of the residents in mind, one that emphasizes teamwork, cooperation, and mutual respect. My second goal is to improve the way we deal with ratepayers. The corporation of the Township of Hamilton is a business with a multi-million-dollar budget. You, the ratepayers, and your families are not only our shareholders, but our customers as well. Council and municipal staff are in place to serve you. You have the right to be heard more than once every 4 years at election time. Should expect to be informed. Should expect to get answers when you ask questions. The township website is a valuable tool, and if you've never used it, I encourage you to try it. I would also like to see a central email address where ratepayer ideas, comments, and questions could be directed, and then forward to personal email of each council member. This input could be considered, answers and information added to the website, or even be included in upcoming agendas for council discussion and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Just in the wire. And we will now hear from Mary Giuffre.
Oh, good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Giuffre. I'm a television producer, director, and communications expert. I have spent most of my career working at CBC alongside ethical journalists like Peter Mansbridge and the late Barbara Frum. I am running as a first-time candidate because I realized that I've been sticking up for the underdog most of my life. As a kid, I stood between bullies and others, and at only 24 years old, the CBC hired me because I had the guts and the talent to help break down the old boys club. Now, 34 years later, I am taking on the Loveshin Brigade, who has much of our community tightly wrapped around their little finger. I'm running for 3 main reasons. Tourism is one of the 2 leading industries in our township. I will lobby for dedicated committee and funds to promote the beauty and cultural heritage our township offers. I also advocate for more public forums to gather perspective from our citizens or on challenges that affect our lives. My major concern is that our rural communities are once again at risk of being gobbled up by our urban neighbor because of the mayor's proposal to investigate amalgamation and annexation without consulting us. During a recent phone call from the mayor, he flip-flopped, assuring me he is against amalgamation, but thought annexation was okay. The facts are the mayor's motion is active and that amalgamation or annexation will see our taxes rise dramatically. Just look at what's happening in Port Hope. I'm in this race to win for all of us. The old guard needs to be ushered out as fresh ideas are necessary for progressive change. Please vote for a clean slate. Donna Cole for mayor, John Davison for deputy mayor, and me, Mary Giuffre, for councillor, to assure your voice is heard.
Thank you very much. And we will now hear from Scott Jibb.
Good evening, everyone. I'm very pleased to see so many out tonight. When I started going door to door to make myself known out in the public, the first 20 or 30 people that I ran into indicated that they didn't vote, they didn't care. You represent the other side of things, and I'm very pleased about that tonight. Many of you I know, many of you I've been in your homes with you. I have had a history in Hamilton Township. I need to clarify that I no longer work in Hamilton Township. I have retired from Hamilton Township. That's where you know me from. I was the building official for approximately 35 years. I was also the old guy in the back room that when you didn't know your lot and concession, or you didn't know if you should be talking to the health unit, or the county, or the heritage committee, or the accessibility committee, I'm the guy that probably got called to the counter to help. It's not something I did by myself, because we do have good staff at Hamilton Township, and I'm pleased to say I've been a part of it for years. I've also been part of many different committees. I've worked on the construction of this building, the arena in Bewdley, and every other small building, fire hall within the municipality. I've voiced my concerns with committee members. I've shared the objectives of committee members. I am a person that speaks out. I, like Mr. Kane, am an independent. I'm not aligned with anyone else. Although I will turn to my left and to my right, and I will say, thank you, candidates, for being part of this function. Because without your interests, our democracy would be much less. I'm going to close because I see I'm getting the yellow warning sign. I simply say, I hope that my history in helping you is something that you can reflect on, because I would like to continue to help you in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And we will now hear from Janine Huffman.
Good evening. Although I'm running for council with no actual political experience, I've been around politics most of my life. So I do step up to the plate with a full understanding of what I'm getting myself into, and will be a good advocate for the people of Hamilton Township. Running for council has always been on my bucket list, and for the first time in my life, I have the time and hopefully the opportunity to dedicate myself to the job at hand. As a manager of a leading corporation, I developed my skills in strategic planning and fiscal responsibility. And one of my greatest achievements was taking a fragmented office and developing staff skills so that they work together as a team and produce several award-winning products. Among my many volunteer positions, I am proud to have been a Rotarian for 12 years, including Chair of RipFest. president of the Port Hope Chamber of Commerce, a Brownie leader, and a Sunday school teacher for almost 20 years. I have my telephone number on my signs for a reason. I want your calls to hear from the citizens of the beautiful township and to hear your thoughts and concerns. So what do I bring to Hamilton Township? I bring my natural ability to be a team player who can maintain balance and harmony within this growing community. As a member of council, working with the mayor and fellow councillors, I hope to achieve open communication and a cohesive team. Whether you vote online, by phone, or in person, vote Janine Huffman, councillor for Hamilton Township.
Thank you very much. And we will now hear from Pat McCord.
Hi, everyone. I'd like to talk about the compatibility of three very different words. They are experience, intelligence, and integrity. Three traits that I believe I have. Each of these words can stand alone, but when combined, they have great potential. When combined, it's possible to look at problems and come up with reasonable, practical solutions. Integrity tells me that even when something is legal, it's not necessarily right. Currently, it is legal for all candidates to have access to when you have voted throughout the entire voting period. I believe that this is an unnecessary intrusion, and I will not be campaigning after October 20th. I was told that it's a challenge to get candidate information. I asked for a candidate contact list to be put on the township website. This was successfully completed. This meeting is currently the only opportunity to meet all the candidates. To help this along, I have invited all the candidates, including the school trustees, to my next two meet and greets in Cold Springs and Bewdley. If they're unable to attend, I will still be willing to put out their information so that you, the residents, can find out what you need to know. I am hopeful, but not confident, that everyone in this room knows that there are no paper ballot polling stations. If I've knocked on your door, if I've telephoned you, it's the first words out of my mouth every time. I don't talk about my platform first, I don't talk about my opinions. Every resident in the township needs that information, so please make sure you pass it on to your neighbors. In 2010, we had a 28.5% voter turnout. We must get that number higher, and we will get that number higher with good communication. Experience, intelligence, integrity. Great things will happen with those three things. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have questions, but before I get to that, it is now 1-0 for Montreal. First period. See, I keep an eye on things. Okay. So this first question is for all candidates for councillor. And you're going to have 1 minute for this. What is the number one issue facing the township in your opinion? What is the one thing you would like to see accomplished next term? So I'll reread that. What is the number one issue facing the township in your opinion? What is the one thing you would like to see accomplished next term? And we will begin with Ms. Giuffre.
Number one for me, I believe, and I think that I made it very, very clear in the speech that I made, that I really think that this township needs new blood, needs new ideas. And what I would really, really like to see happen is that you decide, first of all, that you vote, and second of all, that you decide with us to help make a difference to this township and bring in new ideas and bring in new people. The second thing is that the issue of amalgamation and annexation will not go away if you vote for the current administration. So I highly, highly suggest that to save your tax dollars and to save our township, that you make the decision to vote in my direction.
Thank you. Mr. Jim?
For me, the lack of communications, the lack of respect within the members of council themselves is the number one issue. It's caused an impact in our municipality that we haven't seen for many years. Unfortunately, I do remember when it was there before in the early 80s. It cost money, it cost time, causes confusion, causes hardship. Whether we all agree on a particular topic or not, we should all have our opportunity to voice our opinion. And if we happen to disagree, that's why we have 5 members on council. It's called a democracy. We don't necessarily have to end in a tied vote. But at the end of the day, we need to have respect for one another.
Thank you. Ms. Hunt.
Oh, I could just ditto Mr. Jib, but again, I think the number one issue facing the township is the fact that everybody's got to get to work together as a team with open communication for all and coming together for the growth and beautification of the entire Hamilton Township, not just one area, the entire township.
Thank you. Short and sweet. Ms. McCourt.
I think we're mostly in agreement. Communication is truly the problem here. The one thing that I really, really believe in municipal government is healthy debate. There should never be a predetermined consensus on anything. When it comes to council, we should be able to talk about it clearly and honestly and leave in good faith that people are voting as they believe is correct. So that's my overall goal. The other thing that I really think is sort of like what I would like to see happen is for us to get a CAO again. I think it's appalling that a multi-million-dollar business does not have an actual head that has business administration and municipal governance background. That is something I think needs to be fixed quickly. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kane.
Excuse me. The first thing I jotted down was the divisiveness in council, but that's been well covered. And then I jotted down also that we do not have a CAO. I don't know of any other municipality that's operating without one. The most important person in our municipal government. I'm not sure why the present council has been unable to get one in place, but I think that's the number one task, first thing we have to do and when we get a new council is to tackle that problem. Thank you.
And thank you very much. The score is now 1-1. The next question. Yes, I'm going to keep you updated all night. Okay, the next question. What is your position on policing for the township? Are you open to revisiting a contract with Coburg or other forces? And we will start with Mr. Jib.
I certainly am open to looking for that contract. I realize that there are benefits to both police departments. I realize that our present council had to deal with a budgeting issue. But for me, out in the country, I saw the Coburg police cruiser where I don't see the OPP cruiser. And that's something that I like. So I would certainly be open to looking at that contract in the future, yes.
Thank you. Ms. Huffman.
Personally, I think the OPP are doing a terrific job. I see them visible on an ongoing basis, but as I do even with my own finances, I'm always open to revisiting the contracts to see if there is something that can be saved, because again, like I said, we have to be fiscally responsible to the members of Hamilton Township.
Thank you. Ms. McCourt.
I don't think that whoever pleases us is going to be an inexpensive venture. The OPP new costing, it definitely sounds like it's going to cost money. But the problem is that policing has a lot of obligations through the province. And what they bring down for the number of police per capita, those things, all impact what it ends up costing us in the end. I will say that I believe that the Coburg Police did well when they serviced us. I also believe that the OPP are doing well right now. Mostly for me, I think that we should be asking for it to be revisited what we need in a rural area, because what our policing needs are not the same as what you need in an urban area. So we're getting hit with more money because they're doing their costing based on Ontario as a whole. And I don't think that that's useful for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kane.
Thank you. I understand that OPP have a new contract with their officers, an increased price, and I'm sure they're going to try to pass that off to the municipalities and any new contracts that they make. So absolutely, I'm in favor of revisiting any contract with other police forces. The key question would be, obviously, is if the service is comparable. I can't see, accepting a much less service to save money, but if we can save money on a comparable contract, we certainly have to look at that.
Thank you. Ms. Giuffre.
I live in Bewdley, and it has been my experience that with the Coburg Police, when the Coburg Police were policing our area, that they were not as visible as the OPP are now. I think that they toured the area a lot more, and being at the far end of the township, that was really important. However, it's always important that the costs be considered, and I think that I'd be wide open to exploring both as long as the whole township is serviced.
Thank you very much. And just to remind everybody, if you do have a cell phone or a smartphone, could you set it to vibrate? So the next question. Are you in favor of amalgamation/annexation with Coburg or another township? What, if any, would be the benefit to the taxpayers of Hamilton Township? And we will begin with Ms. Huffman.
No, I would have to say I would not be in favor of that unless it really proved to be a significant cost, and I think that, would have to be put to the people at that time. I was involved with the Kawartha Lakes takeover, and it just about has destroyed them with as far as how they have to disperse snowplows and everything else. So I would have to say they would have to convince me of anything like that.
Thank you. Ms. McCourt.
I like easy questions. I am absolutely not in favor of amalgamation. I will say I'm not in favor of annexation, but keep in mind, that's a hostile takeover. So if annexation ever becomes an issue, it's the province saying it's going to happen, and I'll fight it all the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kane.
I'm old enough to remember the last time we fought amalgamation with Coburg, and I think that we've made our minds up perfectly clear. It's an absolute no. Amalgamation with another municipality, I'm assuming that you're referring to Port Hope Ward 2. I'd like to have an open mind. They would have to show that there were going to be benefits to the taxpayers of Hamilton Township, and I'm not sure how they could do that. My first impression is that it's a large area with a small population, and we'd be taking on more debt than we could recover. But again, I would go into that with an open mind and be willing to listen to argument, get opinions from ratepayers before I made a final decision.
Thank you very much. Ms. Giuffre.
We'll keep it simple, no.
There we go. Mr. Jim.
I like Mary's response. I also respect it and say no, but I have to add one line, and that is if I ever came up with the idea at home, I'd be a dead man. So there is no chance for me to consider amalgamation.
All right. Thank you very much. And this will be our last question? No? There's more coming? Okay. Okay, are you in favor of ensuring that an agricultural advisory committee is in place to monitor that an adequate and thorough consultation program exists when severances and economic development is proposed in agricultural areas? Would you like me to read that again? Okay. Are you in favor of ensuring that an agricultural advisory committee is in place to monitor that an adequate and thorough consultation program exists when severances and economic development is proposed in agricultural areas? 1 minute, and we will begin with Ms. McCourt.
Yes, absolutely I am. I actually have done some research in terms of agriculture in the community because I will admit it's not my strength. I was very surprised when I started looking that I found out that I could only get information countywide, but there's I think it's $1.4 million cash flow from agriculture in our county. We need to make sure that we are protecting it. At one point, I believe quite a long while ago, there was a similar committee, and I don't know how it fell along the wayside, but I think it's really important that we have the ear of what's going on from our agricultural end. So yes, I am in favor.
Thank you. Mr. Kane.
Yes, I'm also in favor. Whenever we talk about rezoning agricultural land, it's always a very contentious issue. I think the more expert input that we can get, the better. I agree with protecting agricultural land. I would like to say that we have to look at each and every case as a different situation, and it requires an in-depth look. But basically, I'm all for protecting agricultural land.
Thank you. Ms. Giuffre.
Well, agriculture is one of the two leading industries in our community, and I would definitely vote in favor.
Thank you. Mr. Gibb.
I split the answer. My first part is no. The reason for that is that have a committee at that time of the severance is not the appropriate timing. It should be done at the time of the official plan creation, which is the document that allows us to allow for the severances. So we need to backdate it, get it earlier into the documents than at that time. In respect to development, that's in relationship to the official plan as well as the zoning bylaw. So I'm in support of a committee having input, but I think the question is such that it needs to be backdated into the process rather than where it's actually asked.
Ms. Huntman.
Well, agriculture is our lifeblood. So yes, I would definitely be in favor of ensuring an agricultural advisory committee was in place, and I would gladly volunteer to join that committee.
Thank you very much. And just a reminder that questions are being collected throughout the evening. If you have a question, write it down and put your hand up, and one of our volunteers, like Kevin here, will be around to pick it up. So the next question, and we will begin with Mr. Kane, and it's for all candidates. What is your position on the removal of the freeze on land development along the Oak Ridges Moraine and on such lands within our township in particular? And I will read that again. What is your position on the removal of the freeze on land development along the Oak Ridges Moraine and on such lands within our township in particular? And you have 1 minute. Mr. Kane.
Thank you. I'm not in favor of removing the ban on the Oak Ridges Moraine land. I think it's there for a reason. It's environmentally protected, and I'm in favor of leaving it the way it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Giuffre.
I'm absolutely in favor of keeping the ban in place. The only thing that concerns me is as I've been campaigning, I've heard a lot of farmers saying that it's not possible for them to sever their land when they have land that's not workable. So I think that I would advocate for the possibility of adding a rider to that for individuals and for small parcels of land to be severed. Because I believe it's got to be fair to everyone who lives here, and because agriculture is our lifeblood, but at the same time, those people are taxpayers. Those people have land that they can't possibly use. I would not advocate for being able to develop that land in any major way. But I think that people need an opportunity to be able to do with their land what they need to do under those circumstances.
Thank you very much. Mr. Gibb.
minute isn't going to do my answer. Sorry, I've had to work with this document for many years. It's a very confusing document. The baseline of it trying to protect the environment is sound. The manner in which it goes about it is very, very different. There are applications that have come into the municipality that you just want to sit there. They should be approved. It's the development of a scrub piece of land. It's the development of a lot line adjustment. It's the development of a business on an existing commercial property that cannot even change selling widgets from pieces of paper because it's so restrictive. Yes, the idea is sound, but it does need to be modified.
Thank you very much. Ms. Huffman.
Well, I believe that the freeze should remain in place for the environment, which we have to protect for the future. But I would have to agree with Mr. Jibb that we could be open to modification in certain specific cases, but I think each one would have to be taken on its own and really prove it that it wasn't going to hurt the environment.
Thank you. Ms. McCourt.
Okay, I'm backing up for a second. I apologize to every farmer in the room. I said 1.4 million. How about 141 million for cash flow for farmers? So I apologize. In terms of the Oak Ridges Moraine, the plan, when it was first came out, I was on council, and I agree with Scott, incredibly confusing and very, very hard to figure out. I don't know that I'm particularly against or want to end the freeze, but I do think that it needs to be looked at to make sure that it's clear so people can understand what it is they can and cannot do.
Thank you very much. The next question. Are you running as part of a slate of candidates, and why or why not? And we will begin with Ms. Giuffre, sorry.
I am definitely running as a slate with Donna Cole for mayor and John Davison for deputy mayor, and I think that I made it extremely clear in my 2 minutes. John Davison and Donna Cole stand for integrity. They stand for openness and transparency, and I truly believe that there has, as everyone has said before, there has been a lot of there's not been great communication on council, but there's also been a lot of withholding on the part of the heads of our community, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, that has to change. And unless we have at least 3 like-minded people on our council, then things will not get done.
Thank you. Mr. Jibb.
Absolutely not. I'm independent. I'm an independent thinker. Majority of you in this room know that. You might not like my position, and I look back at someone who's a neighbor of mine and said, I didn't always like your position, but I always had a respect for it. I took that as a compliment. I am independent.
Thank you. Ms. Huffman.
I'm definitely running as an independent. I don't believe in the us against them. I believe it's the team in the whole as a council who needs to be open to the communication of the entire township.
Thank you. Ms. McCourt.
I am definitely independent. I can tell you 3 terms on council, nobody has ever told me how to vote, and if they had, I probably would be yelling loudly that they've done it. I believe that municipal council has to be individual thinkers, healthy debate, and no pre-planned anything. Thank you.
Mr. Kane.
No, I'm not running on a slate. I think it would put the councillor in a very awkward position. If the mayoral candidate that you're backing wins, you feel an obligation to vote with that person that sort of dragged you onto council. If the mayoral candidate that you back doesn't win and you win, you don't have the trust of the mayor, you won't be given any responsibility. I think you're just putting yourself in a very poor position before you even get started. So no, I'm going to try to be an independent thinker if I can get on there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our next question. Primary health care is important to all residents. Hamilton Township has supported the efforts of the West Northumberland Doctor Recruitment Committee in the past. Would you continue to financially support the efforts of the Doctor Recruitment Committee? And we will begin with Mr. Jibb.
This is not my strong point other than my own personal feelings on it. I believe that we must. I don't know the total benefits of our past involvement, something that we have to look at, but we do need to improve the quality of care in our Coburg Hospital. I know that. I'm here by chance to be alive because of a fluke, and lack of care at Coburg Hospital almost put me the other way. So doctor recruitment is important, and I guess I would have to say yes. But
Ms. Huffman.
Well, I'm not sure without looking at how much we're financially supporting them, whether I would agree with it or not. And yes, I agree that we need a lot of help at that hospital in Coburg, but I also know a lot of people within Hamilton Township go for their medical services in Port Hope. So are we supporting just one town and not the other when our township visits both areas? That is something I would really have to look at as a whole if the vote came up.
Thank you. Ms. McCourt.
The question first?
Primary health care is important to all residents. Hamilton Township has supported the efforts of the West Northumberland Doctor Recruitment Committee in the past. Would you continue to financially support the efforts of the Doctor Recruitment Committee?
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm that we were not talking about just for the township. I think that we do need more doctors in the entire area, whether you're talking Coburg, Port Hope, or the township. And I don't think that we should totally close our minds to the possibility of some point maybe getting something a little bit more in our area, because healthcare is important. The big thing that I think we really should be doing, though, is advocating more with the province that we need improved care, because part of the problem is where the province stands on this and where they're putting their money. I don't like the cutbacks that are happening, and I think that we have to push to get the best health care we can. That's one of the advantages of living in this province. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kane.
We're an aging community. You just have to look up here at me to see that. It wasn't always this great. The Coburg Hospital is a really wonderful facility, but it's just understaffed doctor-wise. I know people who go into Emerge, and if they get out of there in 4 hours, they think they've done well, and it's not uncommon to be there for 8 or even 10. I even know people who drive to Bowmanville because they can get in and out faster than they can in Coburg. So I know a lot of times there's only one doctor on, and if it's an ambulance or an emergency that comes in, people just sit and wait. So doctors obviously are needed. How much we're spending, I don't know, but I'd have to research that, but I would back it, yes.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Frey.
Oh, before we move forward with the next question, or this question, I'd just like to address the thought of independent thinking. If I was not an independent thinker, I would not be sitting among 5 of my potential colleagues and standing on a slate with other people. With regard to healthcare and doctors, we have had an experience in our area that it was almost impossible for us to find a doctor. It was, when we found a doctor, we found out that that doctor left us high and dry and moved up to Peterborough. So I am definitely in favor of spending the money on continuing to search for good health care.
Thank you very much. And the next question is for all candidates. As you are a new candidate, what was your motivation in wanting to run for council? What qualifications and experience would you bring to the job? And we will begin with Mr. Jibb.
I made my decision many years ago to run for council. Obviously, working with the municipality didn't allow me to do that. I have actually retired just recently to be able to bring forward my name in this election. The reason some 30-odd years ago was actually that of a split council and what I saw it do to the municipality. I worked in the municipality for 35 years. Again, buildings, fire departments, every committee there is I've worked with, and I think successfully. And I draw on that experience to hopefully move me forward and be positive and communicate in a great light. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Huffman.
What motivated me to run for this position was probably the fact that what I was seeing and hearing about and the actions that we're taking in council sessions was way out of control. And I wanted to be part of the answer and the solution. Would I have done it if I did not have the time? I'm not sure. But it all came about at the same time. My life opened up and the time was mine to dedicate. So that's what I intend to do.
Thank you very much. Ms. McCourt.
I have the same motivation now that I had 17 years ago. I originally put my name in for council because I was sitting at my dinner table complaining like crazy and realized that I have said to my children, if you don't like something, work to change it. So, put my name in, got out the second time around, back in, got out. You know, in and out doesn't matter. If you think that you need to change something, you work at it. If you think that there's things that you need to support, you support it. And I have the time and the opportunity to do it. I have an educational background in as an architectural technician. I have a job that's had me do mediation with staff. I also worked with ministries and been a liaison with the school board. I am very good working with people, doesn't matter who they are. And plan to work with whoever gets elected this time, as long as you guys decide to elect me too. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kane.
I'm just coming to the end of 42 years as a part-time firefighter here in Baltimore, and this gives me an opportunity to continue in public service. What qualifications do I have in politics? None. I've had 30 years of teaching, over 20 years of running a small business, and the time in the fire department, I've had a lot of interaction and a lot of discourse working with the public, and I just like to continue to serve. So, some of the guys in the fire department thought I'd have too much free time on my hands, so they've set me up here.
Thank you very much. Ms. Giuffre.
Well, the main reason that I decided to run is because I think that it's time for people to stop making a career of municipal politics. New ideas are absolutely necessary for things to move forward. And as a creative producer and a creative thinker, I can offer that to our community. I have supervised people on local, national, and international levels across the board. I've managed multi-million-dollar budgets. When you produce, you have to be a consensus taker and a communicator, and those are all of the skills that I'm offering to this job.
Thank you very much. So, our next question. Recognizing that the current situation is a Ministry of Environment issue, what would your response be to future applications for solar farms, such as the one on Payne Road? And I will repeat that. Recognizing that the current situation is a Ministry of Environment issue, what would your response be to future applications for solar farms such as the one on Payne Road? And we will begin with, I lost track here. Who's next? Okay. No, sorry. No, actually, you were first. Okay, right. Ms. Huffman. I confuse
Sure,
easily.
give me the hardest one to go first.
I like it, I'll take it.
Now we will begin with Ms. Huffman and... Yeah. All right. No, we'll start with Ms. Huffman.
Okay. it is a Ministry of Environmental issue. And I think, unfortunately, every application that comes through, we do have to look at. It might not please everybody, but as a whole, we have to look at whatever comes before us. In the end, it is the Ministry of Environment that will be making the decisions, so we can't really do much at our level except encourage the way we want to go from there.
Thank you. Ms. McCord.
So anything that's got to do with the green energy and what can be okayed is a provincial decision. What we can do is we can advocate how we feel about it. And I think that's something that we need to make sure that we're doing. If we think it's a bad location, we should be sending our views in. Even if we don't get to decide, we need to make sure that the province is very aware about how we think about it. I also think that we have to be aware as a municipality that, yes, it's all at the hands of the MOE now, but that property that we're talking about, it is having issues with municipal land and a municipal road, which means that the property on the other side that's actually having the trouble, we are its neighbors, and we're the ones that are ultimately going to be responsible for that section if the MOE doesn't figure it out. That makes me a little bit nervous.
Thank you. Mr. Kane.
The solar farm on Payne Road is leaving a huge ecological footprint. The best description I can come up with it is it's just an ugly scar. It may not be municipal jurisdiction, but I think we could do everything possible to lobby against that kind of thing happening again. I worked on that farm many years ago. It's disturbing to see what it looks like now.
Thank you. Mr. Fred.
I'm in agreement with everyone that's here tonight. The thing that I'd like to add to that is that I have a nephew who is working on solar farms in other parts of the province, and he explained to us that the technology that they're putting in is so outdated that by the time the jobs are finished, that they are not nearly as effective as they might be. So I would say that it would be something that I would really like to lobby against.
Thank you. Mr. Jibb.
My thoughts about future solar farms are exactly as my thoughts were about this solar farm. We had it jammed down our throats. The Ministry of Environment is certainly a ministry involved, but also is Ag and Food. Ag and Food designate land classifications. How this particular land got designated to the classes that it has is well beyond me. I know the residents across the road. I spoke to them here tonight. If you went down Payne Road, and I've done that a million times in my life, and compared the crops on the east and the west sides of the road, they were similar. However, the land classification was very different and has allowed this to occur. I'm very disappointed.
Thank you very much. We have two more questions. We are going to begin with Ms. McCord this time. What are your views of the changes to council meetings during the previous term of council? Specifically, going from 3 monthly meetings to 2, changing to daytime only council meetings, and the change to a coordinator meeting system. Do you feel it will lead to more or less transparency and accountability? And I will read that one again, because it feels a card. What are your views on the changes to council meetings during the previous term of council? Specifically, going from 3 monthly meetings to 2, changing to daytime only council meetings, and the change to a coordinator meeting system. Do you feel it will lead to more or less transparency and accountability? And Ms. McCord, you have 1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute's not enough. I'll do my best. I am not in favor of the changes that have happened. I believe that we are a busy municipality where 3 council meetings a month was at least adequate, if sometimes not enough. I have been going to council meetings regularly since the beginning of March, and I've got to tell you that what I understand of what is happening is minimal, because with so much being discussed at the coordinator meetings, it doesn't get to the council table where you get to hear it as part of the public. Having been on a council where meetings were at night, I can tell you they're not well attended. But the reality is the daytime meetings, I'm usually the only one in the audience, so it's still not well attended. I think that the night meetings give people the opportunity to come without taking time off work. And I think that the coordinator system, not so good. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kane.
I think more meetings of shorter duration would be more beneficial. I agree with what Pat just said about day meetings. With so many working people, if they wish to come to present something to council, they have to arrange to take time off work to come during day meetings. If they went to more meetings, they could split them and have some during the day, some during the night, to try to accommodate as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Giuffre.
I agree with what Bill said. The only thing that I'd like to add to that is that openness and transparency does not have anything to do with the time of day that a meeting is held. It depends on the integrity of the people that are holding the meeting. It depends on the integrity of the information that is let out to the public. So day or night, I think that that our meetings and our governance has to be open and transparent regardless day or night.
Thank you. Mr. Jib.
For me, and I was involved in that process, of course, not in the decision making, but in involving myself in respect to reports to council. The intent was to have better sharing of information and speed up the process. My observation was it did the very opposite of both of those things. I state also what Pat and several others have stated. Involvement with the public is important. The meetings are open. There's signs on the door to allow that. However, the nighttime meetings I always felt were better attended than the daytime meetings. So I didn't like the process. I think we should revert back to what we once had. I thought it was better.
Thank you. Ms. Huffman.
I think we're all in agreement with this one. I don't like it as well. I do believe that with a minimum of 2, possibly 3 meetings a week, there is no reason why one cannot be held in the daytime and the other in the evening. It does make it more transparent because it does make it open to a lot more people to attend, whether they're a farmer, whether they're a shift worker. They at least have the option of attending at one time or another and possibly having input.
Thank you very much. And it's currently 2-1 for the Leafs at the end of the first period. Okay, please note that you can direct questions to specific candidates, and we have one such question now. For Mary Giuffre. You have stated you are running with Donna and John and a strong dislike for the other 2 candidates. How will you move forward if you are elected with Mark and Gary?
I am a very, very cooperative human being, and I am open, completely open to listening to other people's ideas as long as they are open to listening to mine.
Thank you very much. And this is for all candidates, starting with Bill Kane. Are you prepared to enforce bylaws of property standards for Hamilton Township? You have 1 minute. I'll reread the question. Are you prepared to enforce bylaws of property standards for Hamilton Township?
Yes, I've had, in my travels, I've run into several ratepayers who are complaining about this very topic. People living in conditions that are less than satisfactory, less than hygienic, no electricity, just all kinds of situations that shouldn't be allowed to exist. And I encourage them to take their complaints to council and have municipal staff get involved. There's not any reason that we can't enforce those bylaws.
Thank you very much. Ms. Giuffre?
There's another one.
Yeah, keep going.
Oh, I'm
I'll say
sorry.
that.
I thought
No,
the
this is
question
for all
was-
candidates.
Would you please repeat the question?
Are you prepared to enforce bylaws of property standards for Hamilton Township?
Absolutely. I am.
Okay.
Could be yes or no.
Okay. Mr. Jib?
I'm probably the only one on the table, or maybe even in the room, that's ever had that responsibility to attempt to enforce bylaws. I have a history of that. It's a difficult task. The property standards bylaw is probably one of the most controversial documents that we have in Hamilton Township. We've had some staff difficulties in Hamilton Township. We have a policy manual which states that staff shall not put themselves in any position of any harm when they're working for the municipality. As a result of that, it was the decision of council that 2 individual staff members that were certified property standards officers attend properties. I can assure you that at times that was needed. With the retirement of Dave Kellogg, we were down to 2 people. Then that was Kate Serreris, who moved into another department, leaving me by myself, which meant what I did was against our own policies. Our property standards needs to be revisited, and maybe a contractor.
Thank you very much. Ms. Huffman?
Bylaws are in place for a reason, and they definitely should be adhered to. That's what they're there for.
Okay. Thank you. Ms. McCourt?
I'm with Scott on this one. I think that we do need to revisit the bylaw. Yes, I believe they should be enforced. I also believe that sometimes that what people are complaining about, others don't see as a problem. I can think of times when it's about when ornamental plants. There was one that came more about grasses and things that were grown. And some people were like, I don't mind. And others were like, oh, that looks horrible. What we have is a property standards committee to help make it not be council's decision to say, oh, that's this or that. It's a little bit more subjective. When you have a serious infraction though, and everybody's going, no, that can't be right. Yes, we absolutely need to enforce. So I think it should be reviewed. I think we should decide what are our priorities and we should go from there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have our final question, which will also be the closing statement. How do you plan to promote tourism in Hamilton Township, especially Rice Lake on the north boundary of the township? And we will begin with Ms. Giuffre.
I believe that we should have a dedicated committee for tourism to preserve the cultural heritage and all of the things that the township has to offer. We have so much going on. Bewdley is an amazing place that is tremendously underused. The Gorse Landing, tremendous. And I really believe that if we put a committee together and dedicate funds, that we will be able to bring more tourism into our communities and make it absolutely thrive as the, it is already the second highest industry in our community, and I think that more people should know about us.
Thank you very much. Mr. Jib.
Well, I believe that the first answer that Mary's given can be improved upon. It's not going to be by me. So I'll simply say, Mary, well stated. I appreciate that, and I think you're bang on with the committee and promotion. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Huffman.
Yes, I do believe there should be a dedicated committee to really promote the tourism, because there is a lot more in Hamilton Township, I think, than anybody realizes. And whether it be Bewdley, Gorse Landing, or Hardwood, they have a lot they could move forward with. But I think it has to have a committee for marketing and develop a campaign to really bring people that haven't been to this area into the area. And even without the lakes, even within Hamilton Township, our driving tours, our walking tours, our farm tours, there is so much that we could be out there and really promote a lot better.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. McCourt.
I think I'm kind of ending the way I started. I think that communication is one of our biggest issues. I think that we have a lot going on, as has been previously said, and that we're not very good at getting it out to the world. I also know that there's a waterfront strategy that has been helping us get back to looking after our north end, that Bewdley has seen a lot of improvement, and that Hartwood and Gorse Landing are on the list. I think that that is some money that we really need to spend. Those places are a priority for us. We need to be working on how to get it more publicized. And it's really important to get the people that are actually running those businesses to help us figure out what it is they need from us. We can't just decide for them, oh, we should do this, or we should put it there. So the idea of a committee, I'm completely for. The idea of getting the input from the people that it really matters to has to be the biggest issue on it.
Thank you very much. Mr. Kane.
Well, tourism is not my area of expertise. I know that the increased Canadian dollar really hurt the industry in the Rice Lake area due to a loss of so many American tourists who used to come up. I agree wholeheartedly that a committee needs to be struck to try to come up with some way of luring those people back into our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of the questions for the candidates for councillor. If I could give everybody could give them a round of applause. So we will now take a brief intermission, and there are coffee and donuts in the back.
That's her brother.
Ladies and gentlemen, we will begin again. Right now we have the candidates for mayor and deputy mayor.
I think it's the camera slide.
You would please take your seats again. Okay, if you're holding a coffee, don't run. Because hot coffee hurts. Anyway. So in Hamilton Township, there are 2 candidates for mayor and 2 candidates for deputy mayor, and they are as follows. For deputy mayor, John Davison and Gary Woods. For mayor, Donna Cole and Mark Lovshin. And we will now begin with the opening statements for each of the candidates, and they each have 2 minutes, starting with Mark Lovshin.
Okay, thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for showing your interest in coming here tonight. Thank you to the Chamber of Commerce and the Northumberland Federation of Agriculture for sponsoring tonight's event. I'm proud to say I've had the honor to serve you over the last 14 years. I started as a councillor back in the year 2000 and served as deputy mayor and the mayor for the last 8 years. I'm a dairy farmer on Telephone Road, which I share my duties with my dad Norm and my brother Dan. I also have a vegetable stand that my wife Christine and son Andrew helped with. Yes, I made the motion at County Council involving shared services, that has come back with 150 recommendations and growing to save money throughout the county. This does not mean I support amalgamation and annexation. I never have at any time during my years on council supported amalgamation and annexation for the township. Besides that, if I did, my parents would disown me. For the last 4 years, they have been very difficult with many controversial challenges that have caused a split council. Unfortunately, this has been reflected to staff and to the public. And after hearing tonight, I can honestly say it's also been reflected to Ms. Guthrie. The new council will have a clean slate and will need to work at fixing any damage that has been done. We need to get back to being a unit and working together, being a council that the public will respect and be proud of. We need to listen to the concerns, but remember that we are a business. As councillors, our decisions need to be done at council meetings after hearing all the facts and discussion. I believe in municipal politics and the people that live in Hamilton Township. I've always been approachable and honest with the people. I have high moral standards and lead by example. Always remember, I, like you, am a taxpayer, and I do not like paying taxes any more than I have to.
2 minutes goes quick. Thank you very much. Our next candidate is Donna Cole.
Good evening. I'm running for 3 basic reasons. The hidden agenda of annexation and amalgamation by our mayor, as evidenced by his actions at County Council. Secret agendas pushed from the top down must stop. Unknown to our Township Council or the public, Mayor Lovshin pushed through a motion at County Council to prepare an informational report which included identifying the potential of annexation or amalgamation, example 1-tier, East and West Northumberland, and or clusters of municipalities. He did this without any consultation with his council or the ratepayers of Hamilton Township. When Mayor Lovshin refused council's request for an explanation in an open township meeting as to why he put forth and voted for this motion, I believed he was attempting to thwart the democratic process. To this day, Mayor Lovshin has yet to explain his actions to the ratepayers and the Council of Hamilton Township. Ratepayers need to know what is going on. Council needs to know what is going on. A democratic leader seeks input from the constituents and council before making any major governance changes, such as those proposed by Mayor Lovshin in his motion on October 16, 2013. I believe this hidden agenda still remains. We must stop this. Here is the motion. I have copies at the back table. My second reason for running is to provide an open and accessible government where all residents know what is going on at all times and what their council is doing. There can be no more hidden agendas or secret mayor's wish lists, like his motion at County Council. When matters of this magnitude arise, I believe a referendum is the only way to make a decision. Let the people have their say. And thirdly, to put the township on a long-term, solid, financially viable plan. My economic degree tells me that this plan cannot be based upon handouts from other levels of government. We must be proactive, take stock of what we have, and move forward with a solid plan. My brochure and Facebook page detail my 4-year plan. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now for candidates for Deputy Mayor, we will begin with John Davison.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Back in 2000, sorry. A little too close?
No.
Back in 2010 municipal election, I advocated for honesty, transparency, teamwork, and accountability. Mark Lovshin, you're 14 years too late. Gary, you're also 11 years too late. Tax inserts changed from the pie chart to actual budget amounts. Policy change, truck being driven to Lindsay daily would be stopped. The building expansion, there are no more damp archival documents, discussions with no privacy, cramped cubicles, small public kitchen. The term happy employee, productive employee. Insurance broker, 30 years viewing bids or quotes, no more matching or undercutting. Now a fair process with proper procedures. Long-term goals, a 20-year business plan for roads, water service, fire, police, rec centers, parks, tourism, health, and taxes, only to name a few. Council must review affordable housing with Hamilton Township, support areas and organizations that provide assistance to those in need, work with local government representatives for possible funding. No amalgamation, no annexation. My short-term goals, work with the community and the policing to reduce costs, review funding for doctor recruitment and Northumberland Hills Hospital for equipment necessary to be proactive. Updating the policy and procedure manual, strike a committee. Why is this manual confidential? Why is there no openness and transparency? We need bylaws to ensure there will be measures to discipline counselors. No more comments from the mayor, just agree on most things and we'll all get along. What goes on at county council is none of your business. Is this responsible leadership, respectful of moving forward? Between October 20th and 27th, vote for John Davison for a positive change. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next candidate for Deputy Mayor is Gary Woods.
Good evening. My wife Judy and I have lived in the township for over 40 years. I have 11 years of experience as a council member, and prior to being on council, I have had 35 years as a policing professional. During this time, I took courses and obtained diplomas in police management, criminal investigation, and other police-related fields, making me, in my estimation, quite able to interact with the public in matters as they pertain to council affairs. I believe my past experiences have made me well qualified to step up to the position of Deputy Mayor. Some of the things that I'd like to see in the next term are 1. Public participation and consultation on municipal matters pertaining to budgetary and planning perspectives. 2. More cost-sharing initiatives with the county and member municipalities. The best example of this is the Shelter of Hope Board of Management, which is a joint partnership involving us, the municipalities of Alma-Calderman, Cobourg, and Port Hope. And this includes the sharing of staff members and council representatives from each municipality. 3. Volunteers are one of our biggest assets, and it's time to review our volunteer recruitment process to attract more residents of all ages within the community. The last term of council was a split council on some major issues, which did not lead to a productive term. Many decisions cost you, the taxpayers of the township, lost and wasted tax dollars, not to count the wasted hours of staff time. I will work hard to promote open and frank discussions on council matters. I have always run on the platform of honesty, integrity, and transparency, and I will close with saying I am here to serve all of the citizens of the township and will always speak up for what I feel is best for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And our first question of the evening for this is for the mayoral candidates only. Would the two mayoral candidates please discuss their positions specifically on amalgamation and annexation, and how either amalgamation or annexation would be cost-effective for Hamilton Township, its residents and taxpayers? Would you like me to repeat the question? No? Okay. And we'll begin with Mark Luption.
Annexation is not even on the radar. I mean, we're not discussing annexation at any place, whether it be the county, whether it be the township, or anywhere else. The motion that people are referring to was asking for a report for cost savings. That was a county motion that involved all of the county. That means when I had annexation and amalgamation involved in that motion, it was to look after every municipality in the county, including the smaller ones that may be looking at possible annexation or amalgamation, not Hamilton Township. When I sit at the county level, I'm there as a county representative.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cole.
I believe annexation or amalgamation costs the taxpayers. There is no win-win here at all. If you were to look at the study that was produced by Professor Coban at University of Western Ontario, all the communities that have amalgamated since 1996 have increased their costs through employees by 50% more than the communities that didn't amalgamate. I believe that our township should not be entered into any possibility of amalgamation without the direct request from the ratepayers as a referendum. We requested that the mayor take annexation and amalgamation off the table at the county. They refused to do that. They refused to take it out of the motion. They pushed it forward, so then Warden McMillan told us as municipalities, go back and make a motion at your council and stop it. So that's how we did it on January 21st. It's back on my table. There's the whole history of it. So you can take a look back there and see how we fought to stop possible talks on amalgamation and annexation for us.
Thank you very much. The next question is for all candidates. What is your position on the removal of the freeze on land development along the Oak Ridges Moraine and on such lands within our township in particular? And we will begin with Ms. Cole.
Okay. The current Oak Ridges Moraine arrangement is working fine most of the time. There are some oddities that the councillors alluded to that do need to be revisited. I would implore any future agreement to stipulate no wind turbines, no large-scale solar, and no subdivisions. I'd want assurances that farmers would still retain the same rights to farm that they currently have, and there wouldn't be more restrictions on farmland with the Oak Ridges Moraine if they did put another restriction down. Thank you.
Mr. Davison.
I believe that there's a study coming forward from the regions, I guess, from Toronto through to our area. And I believe it's the Ganaraska who's putting forth a report to the Oak Ridge Marine Committee with their feelings on what's happening with the water studies, etc. This report, we don't have any idea what it contains, but I think it will be part of the new process for bringing forward money from the provincial government to put toward the Oak Ridge Moraine to preserve it. And I believe that's what we have to do is focus our attention on that, preserving the Oak Ridge Moraine. All the rest will be followed after that, whether it's land planning or whatever takes place. It'll all be done at the level of the county. They're now in the process of having that planning. So therefore, we have to make sure when these studies take place, the Oak Ridge Moraine is then financed by the government. Therefore, then we can go forward and say, okay, now we have to look at our actual planning.
Thank you very much. Mr. Woods.
In regards to the Oak Ridge Moraines, it's a piece of legislation that was introduced by the province quite a few years ago, and it's put in place. And it's as it was stated earlier, it's legislation that was put there. There wasn't much thought given or the input that came from the municipalities. I definitely believe it has to be revisited again, and I think AMO, through the Association of the Municipalities, needs to put forward a recommendation to the provincial government to say to revisit this. There's too many problems that just to the average landowner in there that wants to separate some of his property, wants to do something within it, or you have properties that are outside the Oak Ridge Moraine, but then part of it's inside the Oak Ridge Moraine, and it just makes it so difficult for them to come up. And then we're really tight, our hands are tied, is what can we actually do with it? It needs to be revisited.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lufshin.
I'm a strong supporter of the Oak Ridge Moraine and what it stands for. It's there for the protection of our water source, and without water, we can't survive without it. I do realize that there is some issues dealing with the Act itself. The interpretation within the Act is very difficult. The public have difficulty in getting their questions answered, and our municipality has a lot of difficulty sometimes in giving answers because the interpretations just are not there. Sometimes we have to wait for other municipalities to be challenged and so forth, and to get into legal issues and come back with some results. So it's very, very difficult for municipalities to deal with. It's very, very difficult for the public. So we need some clarity on what the Oak Ridge Moraine Act is and what it stands for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So the next question is for all the candidates. What is your position on Northumberland County's official plan regarding rezoning agricultural land to employment/industrial? And we will begin with Mr. Davison.
You want to repeat that question again, please?
Okay. What is your position on Northumberland County's official plan regarding rezoning agricultural land to employment/industrial?
Well, first of all, we had the planning department, the CEO come from the county to discuss the updated planning procedures that are going to be taking place within our municipality, I guess. We're one of the three, I believe, that's part of that planning process to take it to the county level. After that, we were made aware of certain items, but because we had no communication at our council level, we never really found out things were happening until we dig it ourselves or somebody comes towards us and says, this is what's happening. So the communication is not there. But we do have that right now I think it's before county council, where there has been a motion made to go and investigate the possibility of having lands annexed or brought forward to say, you want to be turned into commercial industrial. I think there's a few farms that have been exempt and a few areas that have been exempt, but I think that's an ongoing process, and it probably will be for the next maybe 5 or 10 years to sort out who wants to become commercial, who wants to become industrial, stay as farm. I think it all should stay as farm as far as I'm concerned. We don't have a farmland in our municipality. It should stay viable.
Thank you. Mr. Woods.
My feeling is that the county has initiated this plan to put it in place. They identified 3 areas. They've also just recently turned down one. They have one that they are looking at that they think we come, but it will be a period of time, and there's a bunch of conditions that have to be done to fulfill. The main thing is that they have to look at the soil samples of the land and make sure that it's viable not to be used as agricultural land, and that everybody is willing to see it go forward as such. It's a difficult situation. I'm not familiar with all the county legislation that was put in place to implement this plan and what's going on, but I just have the feeling that, we have to sort of look at it, take it, because the economic needs of the county, we've got to look at some growth in here, and we just don't seem to have the spaces. So I think we'll have to see what the county has to say.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lushin.
The province is the one that sparked the official plan to make the county go forward with an official plan. But the county itself, or the council of the county, has looked at when we passed the official plan, is to look at some employment lands, because we just simply do not have enough employment lands along the 401 corridor. Lands in Port Hope have been already designated. They are part of the official plan now that is going forward. Those are close to where the Swiss Chalet property is and so forth. Some of those lands were taken out. There was a farmer there that was opposed to having his lands changed to employment lands, so that was my motion to remove those. Hamilton Township has a limited amount of land that they would be looking at in the future, but those would be just north of the 401 by Burnham Street.
Thank you very much. Ms. Cole.
Yes. I want to make no bones about it. I believe all the land that has been designated industrial or is being talked about is currently in crops. They are all agricultural lands. I've asked for the classification of those lands. It's a very hard thing to do when the county comes to you and says, could you please be the sacrificial lamb? Would you please give up your good agricultural land so we can have some industry, so we can employ some people in this township? I took a long, hard view of it, talked to some farmers in the area. I'm still not happy that we're doing it. I'm still questioning the County Road 18 north of 401. It was new parameters that were set after we already discussed things with the county, and it's supposedly bookmarked, but I believe that I know all the land that has been moved is better classification land than the 800 acres that we own north that is very good agricultural land. So much concerned. I don't think we should be doing it.
Okay. Thank you very much. And our next question is for all candidates. What will you do to ensure more detailed, more frequent communication with the residents of Hamilton Township to explain your decisions and positions on the various issues? And I will repeat that. What will you do to ensure more detailed, more frequent communication with the residents of Hamilton Township to explain your decisions and positions on the various issues? And we'll begin with Mr. Woods.
First of all, I think what we need to do is, we have a website that is available for every resident in the township to view and obtain information from. But what we need most of all before we get started is we need a CAO to come into the municipality, a good CAO that can come in and get staff organized and get everything running. We're in the process now of doing a different model, and as we've heard earlier, I think it needs to be taken apart and let's revisit it. But first of all, we do need the new CAO, and I think that person can orchestrate things and help make council more effective into reorganizing.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lushin.
I also agree with Gary. We do have a new website now, and it is beneficial for the ratepayers. Anyone can look on the internet and see what we are doing. I also would like to see us look again at looking at a local paper and putting in a full-page ad similar to what Port Hope and Coburg do. Maybe not as often, but at least when needed. I think we should also entertain having a New Year's levy. I think that's a chance for the public to come out and meet the township council and so forth. And the other thing I'd like to see us do again, we tried this in the last term of council, was rotate our council meetings throughout the municipality. Perhaps we'll have one here in Baltimore, one in Bewdley, and one in Harwood, and so forth, depending on what the issue is. So I'd really like to see the ratepayers also come to us, make the initiative to come to us if they're having trouble in understanding some of our decisions and so forth. It would be nice to have that, and we're looking at ideas. So, any idea that comes forward, we definitely entertain.
Thank you. Ms. Cole.
Yes. Okay, you're talking about openness and transparency. And I think what we need is to have our leader direct staff to begin with and council and be open and communicative with them. I use again the example of annexation, amalgamation, and the motion at county. We found out from our staff on a Friday afternoon that the motion was going through the next Wednesday. We knew nothing about it. We need to start from the top down and be communicative through our council to staff to the township. We should use advertising. Radio advertising is good. Local papers, I agree totally. We need to communicate more. We need to have staff get out, and actually our council needs to get out to more public meetings. When we were first elected, we did many public meetings at the waterfront where Councillor Davison and myself and Deputy Mayor High attended them all and got feedback, as well as the Baltimore water meetings. There were the three of us there as well to hear the public and what they had to say about those things. So we as councillors need to get out there.
Thank you very much. Mr. Davison.
Yes, we have a new website in our municipality. This website is because we have a new computerized system in our building. This system is about 35 years old, and it was ready to crash or fall over or just fold up and give up on us. So we replaced that. The new technology we have to bring forward to the public is a link-in system. If you want to be well informed of what's happening in our municipality through council meetings, business meetings, anything going on with your municipality, road conditions, weather conditions, what roads not to travel on, anything that's out there that the public wants to know, because this is your tax dollar, you have to know what's going on. Why not have a link-in system that every time, if you want to be linked into our municipality, we punch the button and everything goes right straight out to you. And you sit in front of your bureau. This is great stuff. Now I've got it. I don't have to go on the website. I don't have to fool around trying to find links and into this box and into that box. It's all there right in front of you as you want it.
Thank you very much. And we now have individual questions. And this one is for Mark Lovshin. What have you learned about dealing with opposition in your time as mayor?
With opposition, you have to listen. I mean, you have to listen, and you have to give your, try to explain yourself and explain the situation and so forth. I've heard a lot of things here tonight that simply were, I can honestly say I don't believe are even somewhat true. I mean, I've always been upfront with my council and the staff of the township. So I don't know where that's coming from tonight, and I'm really hard pressed to believe that. But anyways, I've always been that way with ratepayers. I've always been like that with our staff, and opposition will always be there, and it's just a matter of who's right and who's wrong in the end, but I do my best.
Thank you very much. The next individual question is for Donna Cole. Your platform is leadership with integrity. Can you describe what that means to you and 3 examples of how to do this?
Okay. It means honesty, openness, and transparency, calling a spade, calling a slate. My Councillor Davison and my opponents in the brochures say they're supporting each other. I believe that is similar to a slate. So I'm being honest and open and transparent, saying I'm running a slate. That's fine. I have like-minded people who I believe are honest, open, and transparent, and that's where I want to go with that. As far as going with the three examples, can you repeat the question one more time? And I don't want to run out of time probably.
Your platform is leadership with integrity. Can you describe what that means to you and 3 examples of how to do this? Okay. In 15 seconds.
I'll be communicative with my council. I will be receptive, and I will be communicative with staff as well, and all ratepayers. I'll be open and available to talk to them about anything at any time.
Thank you very much. The next question is for John Davison. In the local papers over the past few years, there seems to be noted a lack of cohesiveness in council, which is not conducive to getting issues resolved in an efficient manner. If you were deputy mayor, how would you deal with such a situation? And I will read that again. In the local papers over the past few years, there seems to be noted a real lack of cohesiveness in council, which is not conducive to getting issues resolved in an efficient manner. If you were deputy mayor, how would you deal with such a situation?
I believe the first thing you have to do is you have communication with the mayor. And you have to communicate with the mayor that everybody's integrity is focused here on the newspaper, the media, whoever you want to have, even the public, you people. It all starts from the top down. It doesn't start from the bottom up. You have to have the integrity. You have to have the responsibility as a mayor and a deputy mayor to lead the other council members in the proper direction. What I mean by the proper direction is you have your policy and procedures that are in place. I've been told they're just guidelines, don't have to worry about it. No. You have a solid foundation by having policy and procedures in place. If you don't have them in place, then everything starts to fold and crumble around you. When that starts to happen, then you have a divide in council, you have a divide in staff. Everybody has to abide by what is there in the regulations. If you don't, then everything goes apart and you're not cohesive. That's why. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And the final individual question at the moment is for Mr. Gary Woods. According to your brochure, you would work alongside His Honor the Mayor. Does your bold font indicate that you feel the mayor should be a man? If a woman is elected as mayor, would you be unwilling to work alongside of her?
My pamphlet states exactly what he has stated, and I'm just making it loud and clear. I do support Mr. Lovshin. I have had great respect for him in the past as a councillor, and I would be glad to support him again, as I stated. And having said that, if I'm elected as your deputy mayor and Mr. Lovshin is not the mayor, I would probably still support the rest of council. And I hate being interrupted, but anyway, I would definitely still, go ahead and support the rest of council. But I put that in there just for the reason that I do support Mr. Lovshin. I was appalled the way last council was run by the hidden agendas that people came in with. And that's all I'll say.
Okay. So this next question is for mayoral candidates only. If elected as mayor, you will hold a seat on Northumberland County Council. There are over 300 families on the official waiting list for subsidized housing in Northumberland County. The county adopted a 10-year housing homelessness plan last year that does not include the building of any subsidized housing during that time. Is that good enough for our low-income residents? Please explain why or why not. And we will begin with Ms. Cole.
Okay, I can honestly tell you I'm not conversant in the subsidized housing end of the county at this point. I'm sure my opponent has quite a bit of knowledge on that. I do not feel that for 10 years you would have no building plans, especially if you already have 300 on the waiting list. I believe that in 10 years from now, you're probably going to have 500 or more. And that means there's a lot of homeless people out there. I believe that we need to do something now. We need to get action plan and find places for these people to live. This is Canada. We should be able to do something about this.
Thank you. Mr. Lovshin.
Well, I agree. I mean, there is nothing in the works right today, but there always is fundings that do come forward, and hopefully the province or the federal government do come forward with a shared planning as far as fundings go for these type of housings. We can't have people out on the streets, and it seems to be a growing concern. There's a lot of poverty out there. We're fortunate that we don't have a lot here in Northumberland County, but it's coming, and it's coming this way. And we can't afford to do it alone. I do know that. If we keep going the way we are, the taxpayers in this area simply won't be able to afford it. And we'll see more poverty as they keep spending their money in tax dollars and so forth. It's very expensive to put these buildings up, but it's even more expensive to keep them running after 25, 30 years. And we have a number of those out there now. So I definitely support that we need more housing, but in the same token, we need to have the money to do it.
Okay. Thank you very much. The next question is for all candidates. What is your position on policing in the township? Are you open to revisiting a contract with Coburg or other forces? And we will begin with Mr. Davison.
Yes, I'm a member of the Police Services Board for the Hamilton Township. More recently, we just had a review with the OPP where they're going to come in with a new policing contract where they're going to get a cost per household, a base rate. We don't know what that base rate is yet. They gave us 2 or 3 figures. It'll probably be close to what we're paying now, which is over $360 per household. Then they'll put across the board a calls for service. Now this formula they have not come up with yet. I don't believe they have. If it's coming, it'll be here probably the next few weeks. The formula will be rated on the calls for service, which we approximately have about 1,700 calls a year. So it's prorated on that. Now it could be increased or it could be decreased. That's the balance is there. We won't know until it comes out. It'll be up to the public if they want to have a review of the policing. Then we'll have to strike a committee. We'll have to go into talks and see what the balance is between town, OPP, or whomever. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Woods.
Yes, I think right now we're in capable hands with the OPP. The contract here we'd have in place for another year, but also in the process, as Councillor Davison has alluded to, that is the formula is under review, and it's coming back to us that basically it's a base cost we're paying across the province. There's calls for service, and also we've broken down on that is there's some issues outstanding that the board is trying to correct, and that is one, they're going to be charging us a base rate for overtime across the province. The township has never yet reached that base rate, so I'm concerned that if we don't have a say in the overtime, we want to have it so that our own overtime is put into our costs, and that's it. We don't want to pay for anybody else's overtime. The other thing is the calls for services, it's alluded to. You know, that needs to be looked at, and we need a formula how we can improve that, because right now, if we don't have any say on it, why do anything extra to help the community out there? Might as well pay the police and let them do it all.
Thank you. Mr. Levshin.
Yeah, I'm open to opening up the contract again. I mean, we do have 1 more year, as mentioned, and we'll have probably a good year to study it and see whether it's beneficial to change again. The OPP have done a good job. We have seen the numbers as far as calls go down. So that tells me that the crime rate has decreased within our municipality. But I think it's mentioned, and I hear that an awful lot when I'm out canvassing, is the visibility simply isn't there as much as the Coburg police were. So it'd be nice to at least compare, see where we are, see, and go for the best deal in the end. Coburg, as I mentioned, I think did a great job when they were with us. Unfortunately, the cost became prohibitive and we had to look at change. So I'd really like to see us look at this again. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cole.
Yes, I'm open to revisiting the contract with Coburg or other services. I believe that there is a big concern with certain ratepayers about visibility within the township, and there are 2 differing opinions. I think we need to strike up an independent steering committee of citizens to come back to council with recommendations. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that would volunteer on that. I would also like to possibly add it to the list of Northumberland's shared services to investigate. I know there was a study done years ago of Northumberland OPP, and I believe that there was significant savings on behalf of all of the county if they've gone along with it. So I think that may be something on that CAO's Shared Services Committee review that we should add to the list. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the next question is for all candidates, but before we do that, Tom Hall, who is our sound guy, could you adjust Gary's mic?
Sure.
So that it's not feeding back. Oh, there we go. Perfect. Even better.
It works fine. Just don't have to touch it.
You don't have to adjust it. Okay. So, the next question. It's a doozy. We have received many questions seeking clarity on the dismissal of a former CAO. What was the total, final, overall costs to the township? Are there any specifics you can share? And we will begin with Mr. Woods.
As to the final cost, I can tell you, I do not know. I have never been given the final cost. And that would include lawyers' bills, not only the settlement that was reached, what it obtained to this day. I just know that there was figures and guidelines set by council and through the lawyers and stuff, and a lot of it was in camera. And unfortunately, I am not at liberty to give you that information.
Mr. Woods, if you could move your mic forward.
Just speak up. Speak up. You can't amplify air.
Okay, I'm sorry. I'll repeat that quickly. I'll try my best. Unfortunately, I'm not at liberty to give you that stuff was in closed camera and session, and also I can tell you that there was cost beyond what we paid the previous CAO, and you know that's I'm going to run out of time here. I'm sorry, but just you know, it was in camera. I can't discuss it, but it cost you.
Mr. Lufshin.
Well, I'm going to say the same. We can't discuss what the settlement was, but there was lawyer costs. There's been a number of changes to our staff because of it. We've also, we are still without a CAO, so that's put us behind a number. I know we've lost at least 1, perhaps 2 years of work that we could have been accomplished if we had had a CAO. It was a regretful time in my life and something I would never wish upon anybody to have to go through. And to this day, I still do not know the reason why the CO was let go. And I really wish that, you know, when I had to do that dismissal, that I had a reason. And I will never forget that day when I had to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Cole.
Yes. Dispelling the rumors regarding the CAO's dismissal, there was no $1 million lawsuit. A meeting with Ms. McIntosh and Council was held on February 10th, 2011 to discuss her role with the municipality. Council sought advice from Ministry of Municipal Affairs, and Municipal Affairs subsequently advised Council to obtain legal advice with respect to any termination. Ms. McIntosh. Council accepted the legal advice obtained, which subsequently led to the termination on April 19th. This decision of Council was carried out after having first obtained proper advice as to procedure and in accordance with relevant legislation and through the direction of the township's insurers. As a former employee, Ms. McIntosh was compensated appropriately for her services. She agreed to that compensation in the settlement agreement. The terms of the settlement agreement are confidential as requested by Ms. McIntosh and her lawyer and the township's insurance company. It would be irresponsible and reckless to discuss the details of the confidentiality agreement which Ms. McIntosh and Council signed.
Thank you very much. Mr. Davison.
Yes, as a former employee, Ms. McIntosh was compensated appropriately for her services, and she agreed to that compensation in a settlement agreement. The terms of the settlement agreement are confidential as requested by Ms. McIntosh's lawyer. It will be irresponsible, reckless, and not to mention illegal to discuss any details or confidentiality agreement Ms. McIntosh and Council signed. Thank you.
Okay. So the next question is for all the candidates. What do you consider your most important accomplishments on council? What would be your priorities going forward? And we will start with Mr. Lufshin.
One of the most important decisions of this council was to put turf here in Baltimore Arena. I think our arena here was running at a deficit, so we had ice surface here in Pad 2. We had to look at a change, and that was the change that we came up with. And that's to help taxpayers in the end as far as raising your taxes and so forth. Another thing I'd like to say that I have to go back on the CO thing. I mean, what was said there by Councillor Cole is just totally not true. I mean, I was ordered to let Betty go at one of our council meetings. To this day, I do not know. We did not have any discussion with any other organization, lawyer, or anything. It came to my order by 3 council members, and I followed that order. And that's what happened. And you can believe that or not, but that's, to this day, that's what, I'll swear to that. And there's no other meeting.
Thank you. Ms. Cole.
Yes, to rebut that, I had a lawyer give me the official version to speak to tonight, and that's what I did. So, our new administrative structure is one of the most important decisions that were made during this council session. And when we developed the new administrative structure, one of the things that happened in June 2012, after much investigation, our new administration invoiced an outstanding amount of over $100,000 to the developers of a subdivision in the township. This paperwork had been sitting for almost 7 years without being invoiced. In addition, in 2013, we implemented a tax collection system which collected $600,000 in delinquent taxes in that year alone. These taxes ranged from 3 to 7 years outstanding. This new system has been a resounding success story. We have also challenged the sole source suppliers, and at Kennedy Road, we saved $65,000 on a $24,000 contract. Our sole source supplier bid $89,000. The winner was...
Thank you very much. Mr. Davison.
Yes,
Go ahead.
Yes, I agree with Mrs. Cole. The other thing I'd like to add to that is our procurement policy has now been followed to the letter. And our last, actually it was the last council meeting, up to 3 procurements, we saved over $61,000 to the taxpayers. Now they're being followed. Before they were kind of wishy-washy, they weren't really followed totally. And we can go into a lot of discussion about this, Mayor Luption, if you want to bring up the issue of Ms. McIntosh dismissal. But you know, my integrity is on the line here, and for anybody to discuss this any further, as far as I'm concerned, is looking for trouble.
There we go, thank you.
The only thing
I'm getting cut off.
The only thing I can add about the Miss McIntosh stuff, so I won't discuss it anything further here, but if anybody wants to come talk to me after.
She just wants to talk.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Cut off.
Mr. Woods, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I won't reiterate, I'll reiterate what I just said. I said I won't talk about Mrs. McIntosh anything more because we have this planned discussion, but please come and see me after if you want to talk to me about it. Going back to the issue, what were the achievements that I've seen here, one I have to speak up for is the Police Services Board. I think you've been represented well by the 2 councillors on there, and the public and provincial staffs that have been appointed. I can say personally that throughout the county with the OPP, our board has been well recommended, and I must thank the people that served in that board, the provincial appointees. They're still with us, but it's one of the better things that I've seen in council. The other thing I have seen, I have to speak up for the Shelter of Hope. I think it's one of the most, as I alluded to earlier, it's one of the most things that's gone on, and the work that we've done for the animals is fantastic.
Okay, thank you very much. So our next question is, are you in favor of amalgamation, annexation with Coburg or another township? What, if any, would be the benefit to the taxpayers of Hamilton Township? Okay. Like I said, I confuse easily. Anyway. Okay. Are you in favor of ensuring that an agricultural advisory committee is in place to monitor that an adequate and thorough consultation program exists when severances and economic development is proposed in agricultural areas? This was asked of council candidates, not mayoral and deputy mayoral. And we will begin with Ms. Cole.
I have always contended that the Committee of Adjustments, which is made up completely of council, should not be. This is the committee that discusses severances, passes whatever, makes recommendations to council. This committee should be a separate entity made up of citizens, and then their recommendations go on to council. Council has a second opinion on this. My feelings are that we are always in conflict of interest being on both committees. And if a citizen is having a problem getting a severance, they can't come to us as a councillor and complain because we're also the Committee of Adjustments and we have to declare conflict of interest because they're talking to us about their issue. So we cannot vote on their matter. I believe we need a separate Committee of Adjustments made of citizens. And then that should solve the issue.
Mr. Davison.
Yes, I believe there should be a separate committee struck because, as Councillor Cole's alluded to, the fact that we sit on the Committee of Adjustment, you do have conflict of interest the odd time. If you know a neighbor, you know a friend, whatever. They come to you with their problems, their complaints by way of phone, then next thing you know, here's their severance sitting in front of you going, oh geez, now I got a problem. So you've got to cut yourself from that tie. So I think a separate committee of adjustment would be nice to have citizens sit on there. You're still going to require 2 council members as well, but you should have a separate committee. You need more of a better opinion from the public, because then they become involved.
Thank you very much. Mr. Woods.
Yes, there's the option for either and or, I should say, that, like we have, but unfortunately we've taken the option that there should be a committee of adjustment by council members, but we also have the availability to do the other. This is the first I've ever heard that people want to discuss going the other way. So I don't know why it wasn't brought up to our attention earlier. But the other thing I will say, if you have a conflict of interest when you're on the committee of adjustment, how do you eliminate the conflict of interest when you're a council member? So I think, it's more important if, council needs to discuss, go one way or the other. I personally have no qualms about it whatsoever. I mean, I'm quite capable of making a decision and carrying it through to council. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Lufshin.
Question, please.
Okay. Are you in favor of ensuring that an agricultural advisory committee is in place to monitor that an adequate and thorough consultation program exists when severances and economic development is proposed in agricultural areas?
Okay, thank you. We had an agriculture advisory committee a number of years ago when I was first on council. Unfortunately, the interest simply left. Farmers are very busy. Farmers sometimes just don't have the time to be available. It doesn't necessarily have to be farmers, though. It could be retired people, retired farmers. It could be members of the general public. So I'd be willing to entertain that we look at another committee in the future and see if there is interest, and if there is, I'd be by all means supportive of it. Council, sometimes we do say it's committee of adjustment, but sometimes it's nice to hear some other points of view. So yeah, I'd be willing to look at that. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we do have an individual question for Donna Cole. Why did you consistently vote against smaller proposed solar projects that fell under the Green Energy Act? Isn't this confusing municipal politics with provincial policy?
I consistently voted against all feed-in tariff programs. They are very expensive, and initially 80 cents a kilowatt hour, and all it is adding to the cost of our hydro bills. We currently pay 14-15 cents a kilowatt hour in our hydro bills, and all of the feed-in tariff program is over and above a conventional hydro that we have out there. You can't shut off the conventional hydro, because when there's no wind and no sun, we have to turn on 100% power with our old nuclear generator plants, our hydropower, our gas plants. So you have gas plants sitting idle, waiting to turn on in 2 or 3 hours if they need to. So you're already paying your base hydro, then you're adding the cost of the feed-in tariff solar panels and wind turbines on top of that, and it's going to bankrupt Ontario in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This will be the last question of the evening, and this will also be the closing statement from each of the candidates. What projects in Hamilton Township would you recommend to be funded by grants from the Ontario government, and how would you go about getting the Ontario government to fund these projects? Would you like me to repeat the question? I got a nod. What projects in Hamilton Township would you recommend to be funded by grants from the Ontario government, and how would you go about getting the Ontario government to fund these projects? And we will begin with John Davison.
Yes, I believe Catherine Wynne announced the infrastructure funding for municipalities under the Permanent Ontario Community Infrastructure Fund and Building Canada Fund and Small Communities Fund. You have to realize we have 400 and some municipalities within the province of Ontario, and how do you divide funds of approximately $272 million or $100 million when you have your transit system in Toronto that's asking for 60 million or whatever the charge is for Toronto, and they want to have the infrastructure paid for by the province. So we're kind of left out. For some reason, You have to work with your provincial counterparts, and you have to also work with your federal counterparts to bring things forward. All they can do is make applications. The applications are available for certain dates and times. We have to fill them out at our office, have to submit them, and it's just by luck that you either get accepted or don't get accepted. But usually in small municipalities, it has to be a major project and a major concern before they'll even fund you.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Gary Woods.
Some of the major grants we need to look at is our roads. You know, we've tried consistently for the last 3 years to try and get some of our major roads that need to be improved, but unfortunately the government has turned us down. And I think at the tumultuous times that they've been going through at the provincial government, I think it's time that we go back to the formula that we did a few years ago when we were really down. When the government gave out grants to municipalities, we were dropped so far down it was just a joke, the money we received. So council took it upon itself at the time to approach the provincial government at a conference and say, we'd like to meet with you. We took our local MP in with us and we said, can you please look at us, review us and stuff. And as a result of that meeting, we have substantially increased our grant money from the province. And I think we need to consult with our MPP right now and say, we need your help and get some more funding with this municipality.
Thank you very much. And now Mark Lufshin.
I'm also of the opinion that we need to look at grants and dealing with roads. So that's something that we can't afford on our own, especially when we look at Kennedy Road through Camborne area. It's going to need major upgrades and approximately $400,000 plus for fundings there. We also need to look at some of the old provincial highways that run through our municipality, the ones that run up through the Bewley area that are very difficult to change. They have a cement base and very expensive again to upgrade or change, and they are to a point where they're very difficult to drive upon due to the bumpiness and so forth. The other thing I think we have to really look at, if there's any funding at all that comes available, our sand dome in the yard is of need to be repaired and replaced, and it's approximately $400,000 to do that. So we're going to have to look at if there's any kind of fundings that come available for that. That's something else we'll need. And we have to work closely with our MPP to do that. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much. And that concludes the questions for the evening. Oh, I'm sorry. So close. Almost got through this without really screwing up. I apologize. Donna Cole.
Thank you. We historically in this township have waited and hoped and prayed for grants. The challenges we are facing in the future is our provincial government funding is decreasing 10% per year for the next 10 years, which is $135,000 it cost us this year alone in our budgets. I don't think you can wait for grants for infrastructure funding anymore. There's a Crown corporation called Infrastructure Ontario. I've talked to them at booths at the conferences I've been at. They have a software program online that shows you how it is more economically viable to borrow money from them for 30 years at 2 to 3% interest and get your roads done when you need to get them done. Put a 20-year plan out there and don't sit and wait and push roads back year by year because you're not getting grants. We need to do that. We need to plan for an economically viable financial future with a 20-year firm plan. If we happen to get a grant along the way, that's a bonus. But listen, we can't keep pushing roads back for 20 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, that's the end of the questions. I would like to thank everyone for coming, for taking time out of your busy schedules to come out this evening. You're showing that you are interested in what is happening in this election. Please drive safely, but before you do, we have somebody else speaking for a moment.
Thanks, Chris. My name is Alan Crothers. I'm your first vice president for the NFA in Northumberland County. I'd like to thank everybody for coming out. Some of those questions and stuff that were brought forth tonight are similar ones that we hold at and discuss about at our county meeting. So as landowners and ratepayers and tenants of this township, I think you've got a really good choice and stuff of candidates here. It's going to be a tough job to elect your council. I'd like to thank those council members for running also our deputy mayors and mayor candidates, and also our school trustees. At this time, NFA is a co-sponsor of this meeting tonight along with the Chamber of Commerce. I'd like to thank a few people here. Chris Pelche as moderator. I don't know if he's got another job after tonight. Tom Hall, sound guy over here. Cam Davidson and Karen Stinson were compiling the questions, trying to get uniformity with, with the questions. I'd like to thank Karen McBurney and Sandra Walls for the signs. Hopefully I don't get a yellow sign, or I am getting this. Also Kevin Ward for gathering those questions. Bruce Butters also as our provincial director for Northumberland County. I'd like to recognize also Paul Burnham. He is our director for Hamilton Township here. If there's any questions that the up-and-coming council has, we'd like to work with you guys. And if you want to direct those questions to Paul, sorry Paul. Also like to thank Sharon Day and her staff for setting up for tonight. And our secretary Eileen Agaris up here, she's taking notes. We'd also like to thank Oak Ridge Springs for donating some water, because I think some of these politicians will be pretty dry after answering some of those questions. And again, NFA is looking forward to working with the up-and-coming council. And just a little bit of a blurb here, our annual meeting for NFA is going to be at Warkworth next Friday night, so like 10 days from now. And tickets are available from Bruce Butters, Paul Burnham, myself, and Eileen Agaris, and it'll be at St. Paul's Church. So I'd like to thank you, and good luck to all the candidates. Oh, and if I could have all the council members please stand and be recognized. Bill Kane and Scott Jibb. All right, have a simple question to ask you guys. I think I know the answer. Do you support NFA and agriculture in Hamilton Township? Good, thank you.
Bit of a loaded question. Thank you very much. Good night. Drive safely.